For years, Rory McIlroy has been one of the few players willing to speak openly about the future of professional golf. He has never been just another name on a leaderboard because his influence has grown far beyond his performances on the course. When golf entered one of its most divided periods, Rory became one of the central voices in the conversation about where the sport should go next. Now, with the PGA Tour facing another uncertain chapter, attention is once again turning toward Rory and the decisions that could shape the future of the game. Because this situation is about much more than one player and one executive. It represents a larger battle between tradition and change, between the people competing every week and the leaders trying to build the future of the organization. The questions surrounding professional golf have become bigger than tournaments, trophies, and rankings. They are now about trust, communication, and whether the people making decisions truly understand what players and fans expect from the next era of the sport. Rory McIlroy's transformation from superstar golfer to influential leader happened gradually over many years. He became a four-time major champion, a global sports figure, and one of the most recognizable personalities in golf. But his role changed when the sport entered a period of uncertainty, and suddenly his words carried a different level of importance. Fans were no longer only interested in his next tournament performance. They wanted to know his opinion about the direction of professional golf itself. That responsibility increased when the battle between the PGA Tour and LIV Golf created one of the biggest disruptions in modern golf history. Players faced difficult choices, organizations faced difficult decisions, and fans found themselves divided over the future of the sport they loved. During that period, Rory became one of the most outspoken defenders of the PGA Tour's traditional structure, while also acknowledging that golf could not remain unchanged forever. But being the voice of a movement comes with a heavy price. Every statement creates a reaction. Every opinion creates a debate. Every decision creates supporters and critics. Rory discovered that leadership means accepting pressure from every side, especially when there is no perfect solution that satisfies everyone involved. Meanwhile, the PGA Tour itself has been facing challenges unlike anything it experienced in previous decades. The organization is no longer operating in a world where tradition alone guarantees success. Sports entertainment has changed dramatically, and fans now consume content in completely different ways. Younger audiences expect more access, more engagement, and more connection with the athletes they follow. The PGA Tour understands that modernization is necessary, but modernization creates another important question. How much change is too much? Because golf is not just a business product. It is a sport built on history, emotions, legendary moments, and connections between players and fans. The biggest tournaments are remembered not only because of who won, but because of the stories created along the way. The rivalries, the pressure, the dramatic finishes, and the personalities are what turn golf events into unforgettable moments. This is where the challenge for PGA Tour leadership becomes complicated. Executives must think about the long-term future of the organization. They must consider media opportunities, financial stability, global expansion, and how professional golf can remain competitive in an increasingly crowded sports market. Their decisions are often based on building a foundation that can support the sport for decades. Players, however, experience the game from a different perspective. They understand the realities of competition because they live them every week. They understand travel schedules, physical demands, tournament pressure, and the challenges of building a career on the PGA Tour. When players ask for more involvement, they are not only asking for influence, they are asking for their experiences to be considered when decisions are made. That difference in perspective has created one of the biggest challenges facing professional golf. Both sides want the sport to succeed. Both sides believe they are protecting the future, but they do not always agree on the path that will get them there. This is why the arrival of Brian Rolapp represents such an important moment for the PGA Tour. His leadership approach reflects a modern sport environment where business strategy, media growth, and audience expansion play a major role in determining success. His experience in building and managing major sports platforms brings a different perspective to an organization facing enormous changes. Many believe this type of leadership is exactly what golf needs. They believe the PGA Tour must evolve, attract new fans, and create a stronger foundation for the future. They argue that professional sports cannot rely only on past success because every major league must continue adapting to survive. However, Players want to make sure that growth does not come at the expense of the sport's identity. They want communication. They want transparency. They want to feel that the people making decisions understand what happens inside the ropes. And that is why conversations between players and leadership have become so important. When someone like Rory McIlroy raises concerns, people pay attention because he represents a generation of players who have experienced both the traditional side of golf and the modern business side of the sport. He understands the importance of protecting history, but he also understands that refusing to adapt could create problems for future generations. The difficult task is finding the balance. Golf cannot remain frozen in the past because every sport must evolve to survive. But golf also cannot change so quickly that it loses the traditions and emotional connections that made millions of people fall in love with the game. That is the challenge sitting in front of PGA Tour leadership. Because the biggest question is not whether professional golf needs change. Everyone already understands that change is coming. The real question is whether the people leading that transformation understand what players like Rory McIlroy believe the future of golf should actually look like. And as the sport moves into this uncertain new era, every conversation, every decision, and every partnership will shape what professional golf becomes next. The reaction from the golf world showed just how important this moment had become. Fans, analysts, and players were not only watching the decisions being made by PGA Tour leadership, but they were also paying close attention to how those decisions affected the relationship between players and the people responsible for guiding the sport. The discussion had moved beyond simple business decisions because professional golf is built on trust, and when trust becomes uncertain, every move from leadership receives even more attention. For Rory McIlroy, this situation represented another major test of his role within the sport. Being one of golf's biggest voices may appear like an advantage, but also creates enormous expectations. When Rory speaks, many players and fans expect him to represent their concerns, while others expect him to help create solutions. That balance is difficult because leadership is not only about identifying problems. It is about finding a way forward when different sides have completely different ideas. Throughout his career, Rory has learned that being outspoken comes with consequences. During the PGA Tour and LIV golf conflict, he became one of the most visible figures defending the traditional structure of professional golf. Some people praise his commitment to the sport's history, while others believe the situation required a different approach. Regardless of opinions, one thing became clear. Rory had become one of the most influential voices in the future of golf. But influence alone does not solve problems. Professional golf is facing challenges that cannot be fixed by one person or one conversation. The sport must find a way to bring together players, executives, sponsors, broadcasters, and fans who all have different expectations. The future requires cooperation because a divided sport cannot reach its full potential, no matter how strong its history or talent may be. That is why the relationship between Rory McIlroy and PGA Tour leadership matters so much. The future of golf depends on whether players and executives can find common ground. Players want to know that their opinions are valued, and that decisions are not being made without understanding the realities they face. Executives want to create a structure that allows the sport to grow, remain competitive, and succeed in a changing global market. Both sides have important responsibilities. Players understand competition. Executives understand business. The challenge is making sure those two perspectives work together instead of against each other. Because professional golf has always been more than just a business organization. It is a sport built on emotion, history, and unforgettable moments. Fans do not become loyal because of financial reports or organizational plans. They become loyal because of the personalities, rivalries, and stories that make golf meaningful. That emotional connection is something leadership cannot ignore. At the same time, tradition alone cannot guarantee the future. Every successful sport has had to adapt to changing audiences and new technology. The way fans watch games, follow athletes, and consume content has changed dramatically. Golf must continue evolving if it wants to attract younger generations and remain one of the world's most respected sports. This is the difficult balance facing Brian Rolapp and the PGA Tour. The organization must create growth without losing identity. It must modernize without forgetting history. It must listen to players while making decisions that protect the entire sport. Those goals are not always easy to achieve because every choice creates supporters and critics. A decision that helps one group may create concerns for another. A strategy that improves business opportunities may create questions from players who want more involvement in the process. That is why leadership during this period will be judged not only by results, but by communication. People are more willing to accept difficult changes when they understand the reason behind them. They want transparency. They want honesty. They want to feel that they are part of the journey rather than simply watching decisions happen from the outside. And this is where Rory McIlroy's role becomes even more significant. Rory represents a connection between players and leadership. He understands the frustrations athletes can have when decisions affect their careers, but he also understands the responsibilities that come with managing a global sport. His challenge is finding a position where he can continue representing players while also helping create solutions. Because true leadership requires more than criticism. It requires vision. It requires patience. And it requires the ability to bring people together during difficult moments. The future of professional golf will likely depend on whether this generation of leaders can achieve that balance. The sport has reached a point where old methods alone are not enough, but completely abandoning tradition would create a different set of problems. The strongest future may come from combining both worlds. A sport that respects its history while embracing innovation. A sport where players have a voice while leaders can still make difficult decisions. A sport where fans feel connected to the traditions they love while discovering new reasons to follow the game. Because the biggest challenge facing professional golf is not simply competition from other organizations. It is creating unity within its own community. And that is why every conversation involving Rory McIlroy and PGA Tour leadership receives so much attention. The decisions being made now will not only affect current players, they will influence how future generations experience the game. History remembers the moments when sports changed direction. It remembers the leaders who helped create progress. It remembers the decisions that shaped the future. Rory McIlroy has already created a legendary playing career. Brian Rolapp represents a new chapter of professional sports leadership. The PGA Tour represents a tradition that has lasted for decades, and the fans represent the reason the sport continues to matter. The question now is whether all of these forces can move forward together, because professional golf does not need another division. It needs a vision that everyone can believe in, and the decisions made during this era may determine whether the next chapter of golf is remembered as a period of growth and unity, or as the moment when the sport became more divided than ever before. So now the question goes to you. Do you think PGA Tour leadership is listening enough to players like Rory McIlroy? Or does professional golf need a completely new direction? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed documentary-style golf stories exploring the biggest players, decisions, and controversies shaping the future of the sport, subscribe for more deep breakdowns.